The charity event at the community center was a tranquil affair designed to bring families together in support of a children's cause. The venue was decorated with soft pastel banners and strings of twinkling fairy lights, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Tables were set up with arts and crafts supplies, storybooks, and snacks for the children, while parents mingled nearby, exchanging smiles and warm conversations. The event was less about grandeur and more about fostering a sense of community and togetherness. Barron Trump was one of the attendees, a rare public appearance for the youngest son of the former president. Though naturally reserved, he had accepted the invitation to participate in the event, understanding its importance in uplifting children and families. At 17 years old, Barron carried himself with quiet confidence, his tall stature and composed demeanor drawing attention without demanding it. Seated at a small table surrounded by curious children, Barron read aloud from a storybook, his deep voice both calming and engaging. The kids, ranging from toddlers to preteens, listened intently, some leaning forward with wide-eyed fascination, while others giggled at the humorous parts. Parents nearby watched with admiration, impressed by his natural ease with the children. Among the attendees was a little boy named Ethan, a shy 7-year-old with dark curly hair and bright, inquisitive eyes. Ethan had been brought to the event by his parents, who hoped the day's activities would lift his spirits. The family had been navigating a difficult time. Just weeks earlier, Ethan had lost his grandmother, someone he had been incredibly close to. She had been the one who told him bedtime stories about angels, filling his young mind with wonder and comfort. Her passing left a void that Ethan struggled to understand. Ethan lingered near the edge of the room, clutching a small stuffed animal, a worn teddy bear that had once belonged to his grandmother. Watching Barron interact with the other children, Ethan felt both curious and hesitant. His parents encouraged him gently, urging him to join the group, but Ethan stood rooted to the spot, his heart heavy with thoughts he couldn't quite put into words. Finally, summoning his courage, Ethan approached the table where Barron sat. The other children parted slightly to make space for him, sensing his hesitation. Barron noticed the little boy immediately and offered a welcoming smile. Ethan's gaze shifted nervously from his teddy bear to Barron's face, and after a brief pause, he asked softly, "Do you believe in angels?" The room grew quiet as nearby parents and children turned their attention to the interaction. The question, so simple yet profound, seemed to hang in the air, touching everyone who heard it. Ethan's voice, though quiet, carried a weight that immediately caught Barron's attention. The sincerity in the boy's eyes and the way he clutched his teddy bear hinted at something deeper. This wasn't a casual question, born of curiosity, but one rooted in loss and longing. The room, once filled with the soft hum of conversations, seemed to still as onlookers waited for Barron's response. The question caught Barron off guard, not because it was difficult, but because of the emotional depth it carried. He realized instantly that this was a significant moment for Ethan, a moment that required care and thoughtfulness. Barron paused, leaning back slightly in his chair as he considered how to respond. He wanted to give Ethan an answer that would resonate, something that would comfort him without diminishing the importance of his question. As Barron gathered his thoughts, he glanced around the room briefly, noticing how everyone seemed to be holding their breath, waiting. His gaze returned to Ethan, and he leaned forward slightly, his expression warm and empathetic. "That's a great question," Barron said gently. "And I do believe in angels." Ethan's eyes widened slightly, his grip on the teddy bear tightening. The sincerity in Barron's tone had reached him, making him feel seen and heard. Barron continued, "But I don't think angels are just in the sky. I think they're all around us, in the people who love us, who take care of us, and who show us kindness." The room remained silent, the weight of the moment sinking in for everyone present. Barron's words, simple yet profound, seemed to offer not just an answer to Ethan, but a universal truth that resonated with the adults and children alike. Seeing that his words had reached Ethan, Barron decided to take the conversation a step further. He slid his chair back slightly, knelt to Ethan's level, and looked him directly in the eye. "Sometimes," Barron said, "we can feel angels the most in the love people leave behind for us. It's like they're always with us, even if we can't see them." Ethan's expression softened as Barron spoke, the tension in his small frame easing slightly. It was clear that Barron's words were making an impact, offering comfort that the little boy hadn't been able to find elsewhere. For a 7-year-old grappling with grief, The idea that his grandmother's love was still with him, like an angel watching over him, was deeply reassuring. "I think your grandmother might be one of those angels," Barron added, his voice quiet but steady. "She sounds like someone who cared about you a lot." Ethan nodded, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "She used to tell me stories about angels," he whispered. "She said they're always there to help us, even if we can't see them." Barron smiled gently. "I think she was right," he said, "and I think she'd be really proud of you for remembering what she told you." The connection between the two was palpable, a moment of genuine understanding that bridged their vastly different worlds. Ethan, for the first time in weeks, felt a sense of peace wash over him. Barron, meanwhile, realized the power of his words and the importance of being present for moments like these. Encouraged by Barron's kind and thoughtful response, Ethan began to open up about his grandmother. He spoke softly but with growing confidence, sharing memories of how she used to bake cookies with him, sing songs, and tell him stories before bedtime. "She always said angels are the ones who make us feel safe and loved," Ethan said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Barron listened intently, nodding at the right moments and occasionally offering words of encouragement. "It sounds like she was an amazing person," Barron said, "and I think those memories you have of her are like little pieces of her love that stay with you forever." Ethan smiled faintly, seeming comforted by the idea. For a moment, it was as if the rest of the room had faded away, leaving just the two of them in their shared conversation. Barron, despite his public persona, had a way of making Ethan feel like he was the only person in the room. As the conversation unfolded, Ethan grew more animated, sharing small details about his grandmother that made him laugh. Barron laughed with him, creating a moment of joy that contrasted beautifully with the earlier heaviness of the question. Their bond deepened, and those watching couldn't help but feel moved by the authenticity of their exchange. By the time their conversation ended, the room had taken on a new energy. Parents and event staff who had witnessed the exchange were visibly moved, some dabbing at their eyes while others smiled warmly. The simple, heartfelt interaction between Barron and Ethan had touched something deep within everyone present. A few attendees quietly took out their phones to capture the moment, careful not to disrupt the atmosphere. Photos and videos of Barron kneeling to speak with Ethan, his expression one of genuine care, quickly began circulating among those in attendance. The images captured not just the connection between the two, but also the universal message of kindness and empathy that the moment represented. The room, once filled with the typical hum of a charity event, now felt united in a shared sense of inspiration. People whispered to one another about how thoughtful and mature Barron's response had been, marveling at his ability to connect with Ethan on such a personal level. 6. Ethan's joyful smile. As the heartfelt exchange between Barron and Ethan came to an end, the little boy's face lit up with a bright, joyful smile. It was the kind of smile that made those around him feel a surge of warmth, a moment of innocence and hope restored. Ethan clutched his teddy bear tightly, his earlier hesitancy replaced by an undeniable glow of happiness. Barron, still kneeling to stay at Ethan's level, reached into his pocket and pulled out a small item, a simple, polished stone engraved with the word hope. He had been given the keepsake earlier in the day by one of the event organizers as a token of the charity's mission to inspire positivity in children's lives. Holding it out to Ethan, Barron said, "I want you to have this. Whenever you feel sad or miss your grandma, just hold it and remember that she's still with you in spirit." Ethan's small hands wrapped around the stone as if it were the most precious gift in the world. So, "Thank you," he said softly, his voice filled with gratitude. The gesture, though simple, carried immense meaning for him. It was more than just a physical object. It was a symbol of the comfort and understanding he had found in that moment. Unable to contain his emotions, Ethan leaned forward and wrapped his arms around Barron in a spontaneous hug. Barron embraced him gently, his expression softening as he patted Ethan's back reassuringly. The crowd, watching from a respectful distance, was deeply moved by the genuine connection between the two. Some wiped away tears, while others simply smiled, feeling privileged to witness such a tender moment. Barron spoke quietly to Ethan as they hugged, offering one last word of encouragement. "You're stronger than you know," he said, "and your grandma's love will always be with you. Never forget that." As Ethan pulled back, his smile grew even wider, and his parents, standing nearby, were overwhelmed with gratitude. They stepped forward to thank Barron personally, their voices trembling with emotion. "You've done more for him in this moment than we could have imagined," Ethan's mother said. "Thank you for giving him hope and for reminding him that he's not alone." Barron responded with humility, shaking their hands and insisting that it was Ethan's courage in asking such a profound question that had made the moment special. "He has a good heart," Barron said, "and he's lucky to have parents who clearly love him so much." For Ethan, the day became a turning point. The weight of his grief didn't disappear entirely, but it was eased by the understanding and comfort Barron had offered. He carried the polished stone in his pocket everywhere he went, touching it whenever he felt sad or uncertain. It became a source of strength and a tangible reminder of the kindness he had experienced that day. The heartfelt interaction between Barron and Ethan did not remain confined to the walls of the community center. Among the onlookers were several parents and event staff who had discreetly taken photos and videos of the touching exchange. By the time the event concluded, those images and clips had begun circulating on social media, spreading rapidly as people shared the story of Ethan's question and Barron's thoughtful response. Within hours, the story had gone viral. A short video showing Barron kneeling to speak with Ethan, followed by the moment when Ethan hugged him, was viewed millions of times. Captions accompanying the video highlighted the depth of the moment. "A little boy asked Barron Trump about angels, and his response will restore your faith in humanity." The hashtag Barron's Angels trended across platforms, alongside kindness, inaction, and empathy matters. People from all walks of life commented on the post, expressing their admiration for the sincerity of the interaction. "This is what the world needs more of," one user wrote. "Kindness, empathy, and the willingness to truly listen." The story also inspired others to share their own experiences. Under the hashtags, users posted about moments when someone's kindness had made a lasting impact on their lives. "When I lost my dad, a stranger gave me a simple note that said, 'You're not alone,'" one person shared. "That note meant everything to me." Barron's words to Ethan reminded me of that moment. Celebrities and public figures joined in the conversation, amplifying the story's reach. Some praised Barron's maturity, remarking on how rare it was to see someone so young handle such a profound question with grace and thoughtfulness. Others emphasized the importance of Ethan's courage in asking the question, noting how children often speak from the heart in ways that adults sometimes forget. Schools and community organizations quickly picked up on the story, using it as an opportunity to teach empathy and kindness to young students. Teachers played the video in classrooms, prompting discussions about how small acts of compassion could make a big difference in someone's life. Ethan and Barron's story is a perfect example of how listening and connecting with someone can bring comfort and hope, one teacher explained during a lesson. The social media buzz also spurred action. Inspired by the story, people began organizing acts of kindness in their own communities. Donation drives for children's charities, handwritten letters to grieving families, and random acts of generosity all became part of the ripple effect created by Barron and Ethan's interaction. As the story gained momentum online, traditional media outlets quickly took notice. Major news networks and publications featured the video and accompanying photos, framing the story as a rare and touching moment that showcased the power of empathy. Headlines such as "Barron Trump's angelic response to a little boy's heartfelt question" and "Kindness knows no bounds," the viral moment that touched millions, dominated news cycles for days. Reporters delved deeper into the backstory, interviewing witnesses who had been present at the event. Parents who had seen the interaction firsthand described it as profoundly moving and a reminder of the good we're capable of. One attendee shared, "It wasn't just what Barron said, it was the way he said it. You could tell he really cared about Ethan and wanted to give him an answer that mattered." The coverage extended beyond the emotional impact of the moment. Articles explored the broader themes of grief, resilience, and the importance of fostering open, compassionate conversations with children. Experts in child psychology praised Barron's response, noting how his ability to listen and validate Ethan's feelings created a safe space for the little boy to express himself. Public reaction to the media coverage was overwhelmingly positive. Readers and viewers commented on how refreshing it was to see such a heartfelt story in the news. In a world that feels divided and chaotic, this story reminded me of what truly matters, one viewer wrote. It's about connecting with others and showing kindness wherever you can. As the story continued to gain traction, Ethan's family began receiving messages of support and encouragement from strangers around the world. People reached out to share their own experiences with loss and to express how inspired they were by Ethan's courage and Barron's compassion. Ethan's parents decided to speak publicly about the experience, hoping to shed light on the importance of emotional support for children dealing with grief. In an interview, Ethan's mother described how challenging it had been to comfort her son after the loss of his grandmother. "He had so many questions we didn't know how to answer," she said. But that moment with Barron gave him something we couldn't, a sense of peace and understanding. The family used the platform to advocate for greater awareness about childhood grief and the need for resources to help families navigate it. They partnered with local organizations to create programs that provided counseling and support for children who had experienced loss, ensuring that no child would feel alone in their grief. Ethan's father, reflecting on the encounter, said, "It's amazing how one question from a little boy and one thoughtful answer from a young man can touch so many lives." Barron reminded us all that kindness and empathy have the power to heal. As the story of his interaction with Ethan gained international attention, Barron Trump found himself at the center of a rare moment of public admiration. The viral videos and heartfelt messages pouring in from around the world made it clear that what he had seen as a simple act of kindness had touched people far beyond the community center. Despite the overwhelming attention, Barron remained humble, focusing on what the moment had meant to Ethan and the broader message it carried about compassion and empathy. In the days following the event, Barron reflected on the experience in conversations with his family. Speaking with Melania, he described how moved he had been by Ethan's question. "He was so sincere," Barron said. "It wasn't just curiosity, it came from his heart. I could feel how much he missed his grandmother, and I wanted to make sure he knew he wasn't alone." Melania, known for her dedication to children's causes, expressed her pride in Barron's thoughtful response. "You listened to him," she said. "That's what children need most when they're struggling, someone who takes their feelings seriously." It's a beautiful reminder of how small moments can have such a big impact. Barron's reflection extended beyond the moment itself. In a rare public statement, he shared his thoughts on why the exchange had been so meaningful to him. "When Ethan asked me about angels, I realized how important it is for all of us to take time to really listen to kids," he said. "They see the world in a way that's so pure, and their questions often carry more meaning than we realize. It reminded me that compassion isn't just about grand gestures. It's about being present and offering comfort when someone needs it." His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about how adults could better connect with children, especially those navigating grief and other emotional challenges. Barron encouraged families, teachers, and caregivers to approach children's questions with patience and openness, emphasizing that even the smallest acts of empathy could make a lasting difference. Barron's statement also highlighted the importance of creating environments where children felt safe expressing their emotions. "Ethan's courage in asking that question is what started this entire moment," Barron said. "We need to make sure every child feels brave enough to speak up, whether they're sharing their dreams, their fears, or their hopes." The thoughtful message inspired further admiration for Barron's maturity and insight, with many noting how unusual it was for someone his age to articulate such a nuanced understanding of emotional connection. "He has a wisdom beyond his years," one commentator wrote. "His words remind us all of the importance of kindness, not just in what we do, but in how we listen." As Barron reflected on the broader impact of the moment, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. While he had always been a private individual, the experience with Ethan convinced him that small acts of compassion could have far-reaching effects. Barron decided to dedicate more time to causes that supported children, particularly those dealing with grief or loss. Through quiet visits to schools, hospitals, and community events, he began to engage directly with young people, inspired by the knowledge that even brief interactions could bring comfort and hope. The story of Barron Trump and Ethan became more than a viral sensation. It became a timeless symbol of empathy, kindness, and the profound impact of meaningful human connection. The interaction between a young boy seeking answers and a teenager willing to listen resonated deeply with people worldwide, transcending cultural and political boundaries. It reminded audiences everywhere that compassion was a universal language, capable of bridging gaps and creating lasting change. For Ethan, the moment left an indelible mark on his life. He carried the polished stone Barron had given him as a cherished keepsake, a tangible reminder of the comfort and hope he had found that day. Over time, Ethan's grief over losing his grandmother softened into a deep sense of gratitude for the love she had given him. When he felt uncertain or sad, he would think back to Barron's words, finding reassurance in the idea that his grandmother's love was still with him, like an angel watching over him. Ethan's family also felt the lasting effects of the moment. Inspired by the global response to their son's story, they became advocates for children's mental health and emotional well-being. Partnering with local organizations, they worked to create resources for families dealing with loss, ensuring that no child would have to face grief alone. What happened with Ethan and Barron showed us the power of connection, Ethan's father said in an interview. We want to make sure every child has someone to listen to them and remind them that they're not alone. Meanwhile, Barron's role in the story became a defining example of how small acts of kindness could spark significant change. Despite his typically private nature, Barron's involvement in children's causes grew as he continued to reflect on the importance of compassion. He became a quiet but consistent advocate for fostering empathy in families and communities, using his platform to highlight stories of resilience and kindness. Barron's actions inspired countless others to look for opportunities to connect with and support the people around them, particularly children navigating difficult emotions. The viral nature of the story gave it a global reach, sparking movements and initiatives aimed at promoting kindness and empathy. The hashtag Barron's Angels remained a rallying cry for individuals and organizations committed to spreading positivity. Schools incorporated the story into lessons about emotional intelligence, using it as an example of how listening and responding with care could make a lasting impact. It's a simple story, one teacher explained to her class, but it's also powerful. It shows us that when we take time to care for others, we create ripples that go far beyond the moment. The legacy of the story extended beyond social media and classrooms. Communities organized events inspired by Ethan and Barron's exchange, such as fundraisers for children's charities, storytelling nights focused on themes of love and resilience, and workshops for parents and caregivers on how to support grieving children. These efforts created tangible change, helping countless families find the resources and support they needed to navigate difficult times. As Ethan grew older, he often reflected on how much that single moment had shaped his perspective on life. Barron didn't just answer my question about angels, Ethan said during a speech at a charity event years later. He reminded me that there are people in this world who care, who listen, and who want to help. That's something I've carried with me ever since. The narrative also influenced a broader cultural shift toward valuing emotional connection and vulnerability. In an era often characterized by division and distraction, the story served as a reminder of the power of presence and empathy. It inspired individuals to slow down, listen more carefully, and approach others with an open heart. For Barron, the legacy of the moment was deeply personal. He often reflected on how a single heartfelt question from a little boy had taught him more about compassion than he could have imagined. Ethan showed me that it doesn't take much to make a difference, Barron said in a rare interview years later. Sometimes all it takes is being there for someone in their moment of need. The story of Barron and Ethan became a timeless testament to the idea that kindness, no matter how small, could ripple outward in ways no one could predict. It was a reminder that in a world often consumed by noise and chaos, the quiet power of empathy had the ability to bring light and hope to even the darkest corners.